can see the tip is broken off here, and this is a CPM 20 civivi version, and I did contact Spyderco already, and they did send me a shipping label. They didn't say whether or not it would be covered under warranty. They just said send it our way and we'll inspect it and let you know, and I haven't had time to ship it yet, and I figured I'd do this little video here before I actually ship it. So I did. This knife did fall tip down while I was using it on a surface, and the tip broke off. It fell about 3 feet, maybe 3.5 feet, and somehow just basically landed straight down. Now that tip broke off. It didn't unlock the knife when it fell, but that's just a little story. Basically, what I've come to realize kind of is that if I wanted to keep this and not even attempt to send it in and make a new edge, maybe have it curved slightly, or maybe have it go straight and then a very low angle straight out that way. And I was looking at this knife and I was seeing, well, what's gonna happen if I do that? Because if you look at where my fingernail is, you can see the edge is gonna start to be, I don't know if you can see that, the edge is gonna start to come up. You know, if I make an edge here, it's gonna basically be at that top point up, and you know what I mean. It's gonna start, the edge is gonna start showing outside of this handle material, and I noticed this is kind of a not really a design flaw, because obviously with the factory edge, the edge isn't poking out. However, these folding knives are intended to be used. They're intended to be sharpened and resharpened. They're tools. These are tools for everyday use and certain tasks that are all of legal nature. And that's what these are. These are tools. So they will be resharpened, even if the steel is incredibly amazing, such as CPM 20 CV. It does have great edge retention. None of these knives are gonna, basically the edge is not gonna stay how they were shipped from the factory. Now this is a factory edge. I haven't made the decision if I wanna make a new edge or just send it in, because they haven't said if they can actually replace this or what would happen, and I'm kind of on the fence if I should keep this or not, or send it back and see what happens. You know, they did send me the shipping label, so I might as well send it back and see what they say. But basically, it is kind of a little bit of a design flaw, because all these knives are intended to be used, and when you use them, you're gonna have to resharpen them. And what that's gonna do, even if, say I didn't break this tip, I'm gonna use this knife, use it, resharpen it. So it's gonna bring the edge up. And use it, and resharpen it. It's gonna bring the edge up and up and up higher. It could even go as high as higher than where that broken tip is, and it basically wouldn't matter that I broke it, you know, eventually. But hear me out here, because what I want to show you is once it goes further than that broken tip and the edge is way up here, that's going to take a very long time nonetheless, but it's going to start to poke out of the handle, and it's basically going to be defective. Not defective, that's a design flaw, because it's not meant to, the edge is not meant to stay at where it was sent from the factory. It'd be nice if it stayed there, but it's going to eventually go up as you use and sharpen knives. Now, all these knives have this kind of issue in common. If you look, you can see the tip of this knife. When it's folded in, this is a cold steel American Lawman, it is so close. The tip is so close to that handle that if you sharpen it, you know, a dozen times, it might start to, basically it's going to look like that almost when it's folded in. Obviously it won't look like that, because it will still click in and it'll still be folded in. This part is not going to be coming out. What's going to happen is the edge is going to be going up, and it's, you know, it's going to take a while, and none of this part is ever going to come up out of that handle when it's folded. But the issue that I'm kind of seeing in some of these knives, these folding knives, are the tip is just so close to the, you know, when it's folded in, it's barely tucked in the handle. And sorry, I'm making kind of some smudges on here. I got a microfiber, I can clean this off real quick. Basically, I've noticed that half my knives have this issue, or potential issue. You know, it isn't an issue when they ship them out, because obviously it folds in fine. And if you look at all these knives, or for the most part, they all kind of have a similar, even though they're different sizes, they have a similar kind of profile theme going, where a lot of the blade is sticking out of the handle, and what happens is it's gonna basically, this one is, all you gotta do is put your fingernail up and you'll see that it's not gonna take much, you know, a dozen times sharpening. I mean, it might vary per person, but I'm really interested to see people who have owned some of these knives and for a while and are avid sharpeners, and I'm interested to see, you know, if their knives are starting to look a little funky when they're folded in, because obviously none of the belly or this back part for this civivi here is going to be poking out, but the tip, you know, when you're sharpening it, it's going to take off material. You know, this is D2 steel. Every time you sharpen it, depending on what you use, diamond, stone, or anything just stropping, I use a combination of things. Nonetheless, it's going to take off material as you put the new edge on, and it's going to bring everything up just a little bit each time. So I'm thinking, like for this knife, for example, after about a dozen times, that tip might actually start poking out, and you know, it might catch on things. It's a little bit of a design flaw. I didn't really notice it on this Yojimbo, the Spyderco, but actually the Yojimbo is designed much better than this, where this cutout right here, it actually is extended the way it's designed. You know, it's a bigger version of this, that Yojimbo, and it looks like that one does not have this issue at all, because that whole front section is tucked in deep, much deeper into this handle than this Yojimbo 2. That Yojimbo, as far as pictures go, it looks like the whole front section is inside the handle when it's folded in. So in my opinion, that would be a little bit better of a knife to get, just for that reason, not having a little bit of a design flaw. Cold Steel American Lawman is pretty close, and that's not as bad as this civivi. It is tucked in a little bit more, but it's so close. I mean, you know, you bring that edge up when you take off material and sharpen it, it's going to be up to here in, you know, 20 sharpens. For my own, in my own experience, it might be up maybe a little bit lower, but it's going to take, you know, it might not even be that, it might be a lot more sharpening than that. It might be 10 years later, but that doesn't matter, because these are tools. They're designed to be used, designed to be resharpened, and they should last a lifetime. And I think this kind of design, unfortunately, with the Spyderco Shaman, it does have a very similar issue. That tip is so close, almost kind of like that American Lawman. And yes, this is a good steel, CTS XHP. I'm kind of disappointed because, you know, it might not be something you run into pretty quickly in owning the knife, and there's nothing wrong with them initially when they're shipped. You know, all the blade is tucked in, and I haven't really noticed it until I broke the tip on this Yojimbo 2 and seeing if I even have enough handle left to put another edge on it. You know, it's gonna bring everywhere where that point is, there's gonna be a new edge coming up from that point up, so it's gonna basically take a chunk out when I put an edge on it, unless I do a really low angle. But yeah, that's gonna start, the edge is gonna start being visible from the side, you know what I mean? So this is just something I noticed on some of my knives, not all of them. And the theme of this kind of issue or potential issue is a lot of the blade is sticking out, which I don't like as well. It seems like I notice that more in my pocket when the metal is sticking out of the handle when it's folded in. This is a Cold Steel Code 4. This has a lot of the blade sticking out of the handle when it's folding in, about 50%. You know, and I get it, you know, some of these locking mechanisms will prevent the blade from being tucked in more. You know, it takes up space with this triad lock. It's going to take up a little section inside of that handle, you can see in there. So it's only going to be able to be, with this, for example, that blade can only be tucked in there so much. And another thing I noticed is it seems like there is actually a little bit of room, like they could have tucked it in more, although that would change the geometry. It could change the angle that the blade is when it's open. That's gonna, you know, that might be a lot of resources and design when it comes to utilizing all the space in there. But I think companies should really reassess some of their designs, and if there is more space inside of the handle when the knife is folded in, it should be utilized with either a broader blade, or if you don't want to do a broader blade, then utilize that room in the handle and have it be tucked in a little bit more. And it might take a lot of changes to the knife, but I think that that is something that people might run into eventually with some of these knives. Maybe not now, maybe some of these knives are 5 years old and no one has run into this issue, but I guarantee you after 10 years or 20 years or X amount of time, when you resharpen this knife or some of these other knives on the table, you're going to start noticing the edge be visible when it's on its side. It's going to be poking up out of the handle when it's folded in, and it's not going to be on the belly, it's not going to be down here, it's just going to be on the tip. And to me, that's very annoying, because it's going to take a lot, depending on the angle of the design of the blade. Some of these might be a little bit more catchy, like if the edge is poking out like that. This one seems like it's kind of streamlined, where it might not even catch on anything, but it seems like some of these might be a little bit more pokey. If the edge is poking, if sticking out, obviously it won't be that low, it would be up a little higher. But this one, for example, seems like it would catch on things a little bit more if it was sticking out like that. And like I said, the bellies are always pretty much going to be in, like, you'd have to sharpen the whole knife, take out all the material for any of the belly to be poking up. I mean, that's like 50% of the blade. So that's just my thoughts. I haven't shown this knife yet, but this does have a very similar type of thing going on. It's some of these aren't as bad. This one's actually pretty good. It seems like it would take a lot of sharpening for this Spyderco Native Chief. I mean, it's still pretty close, as you can see. I hope you can see this, because I'm not looking at the camera right now. I'm sitting at the table, but you can see where my fingernail is. Let's pull the knife out. Basically, I mean, you'd have to take off a few millimeters. It'd probably take me personally 2 years of sharpening, depending on if for moderate use of this knife, for it to start poking out. And yeah, I don't know. It's just something I would not want to run into. Some of these knives are just completely different. Like this Spyderco Paramilitary 2. This is the Tonto version. This is S30V. But if you just look at it, the whole nose is just deep. It is deep in the handle material. It's amazing. This will never run into that issue. This will never have that issue of all these other knives or potential issues. This is something that's going to happen, that you could run into later on down the road of owning these and resharpening them and using them, and eventually that tip of the edge is going to start poking out when it's folded in, and to me that is annoying. I would almost say that is a design flaw. And if that happens with these knives, I will contact the companies with pictures and show them. I'm not going to do it on purpose. I'm not going to take off material. I'm just going to use them how I normally do and see what happens. And I did buy this one. I was going to give this to someone as a gift, but I figured I'd give them something else, because this one is just so close. It's like crazy. And also, if you're looking at a knife that might have this potential issue of the design like that, a better steel is going to last longer before this issue might arise. Something that has great edge retention, S90V comes to mind. Also M390 20CV comes to mind. Something with really good edge retention is a steel that I would. If you want one of these knives or a knife like it, and you see in the pictures or in a review that it's just not very deep in the handle when it's folded, I would recommend that you get the upgraded steel if that's an option. Now, some knives are kind of in between. So if you saw that Paramilitary 2 I showed, it's so deep in the handle that it's not even going to have that issue. This is a Para 3, a standard Para 3, and it's kind of in the middle. It's not ever going to have that issue, I don't think, because you'd have to take off about 30% of the broadness of the blade for it to start poking up, and even then, I don't think you might have to take out 40%. I don't know. There's going to be no use of the blade left if you took off that much metal on the blade itself. So I don't see an issue with this Para 3. It's well tucked in there. It's not as good as that Paramilitary 2, but I'm not sure if the regular Paramilitary 2 the nose is tucked in like that as well, where it's just dug in deep. It might just be you know, the design, it is longer than the Para 3, and then the back end of the handle kind of flares out, so that helps tuck in the nose nice and deep in there. But yeah, I'm not gonna make this video too long. I just want to show a couple other knives and good examples of knives that are tucked in. This is my Kershaw bare knuckle. I love this knife. This knife is awesome. I have a 20 CV version, but yeah, this one you can see just by looking at it, when it's closed, the blade's pretty folded in the handle. I mean, it utilizes a lot of the internal space when it's folded in. And look at that, the nose is deep in there. You know, it's not ever gonna have that issue. Anyways, just a couple examples of that, and something that I found out. I figured I'd put a video out and see. You know, it helps to get information out, and I wasn't really aware of it before I broke the tip on this. So something you might want to be aware of, or just think a little bit about if you're looking at buying a new knife. Thank you.